Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect. Today we're going to be checking out the brand new DJI Mavic Air. Now this is the newest release from DJI. It falls right between their Mavic Pro and their Spark, at least in terms of price point. And I say that because although it is in the middle there, it takes a lot of the best features from both the Spark and the Mavic Pro, blends them together, and also improves on quite a few features as well. Now we'll discuss all of those points. I'm going to be making quite a few comparisons to the Mavic Pro and the Spark. If you're not too familiar with those drones, you can check out my videos on those. I'll put links up in the corners here and in the description. You can check that out. But let's start with a look at the body of the Mavic Air. The biggest thing about the Mavic Air is that it's really small. It looks a lot more like the smaller Spark than it does the larger Mavic Pro. However, the awesome part about it is that it folds up like the Mavic Pro does. While the Spark's biggest asset is its small size, it doesn't fold up this way, which means while the Mavic Air is a little bit bulkier than it, it still folds up to a smaller footprint than the Spark does, which is very impressive. So that size factor is a huge deal. When I first opened the box, in fact, and saw the case, I assumed that was the case for the remote, not for the drone itself. Another nice point is that it has a 3-axis gimbal like the Mavic Pro, not the 2-axis gimbal like the Spark, so the footage is going to be nice and smooth even in windier conditions. At the back, we've got the SD card slot, a micro SD card slot, and a USB port. Very cool addition here is that the Mavic Air actually comes with 8 gigabytes of internal memory. So if you've forgotten your SD card, you're not completely out of luck. Neither the Spark or the Mavic Pro has that feature. We also have sensors on the front, bottom, and also the rear of the drone, which is notable because, again, neither the Mavic Pro or Spark have rear sensors. That's going to help with the new optical avoidance system called APAS, which we'll be discussing later. Then we've got the removable battery here, which will give you 21 minutes of flight time, which is not bad, but it is one of the few areas where the Mavic Pro outperforms the Mavic Air because the Mavic Pro has a 27-minute flight time. We've got the remote controller here, which looks very similar to the Mavic Pro controller, except it doesn't have the screen on the front that the Mavic Pro controller has. A nice new feature on this remote is that the sticks are actually removable, which means the remote can have a slightly slimmer profile for portability. In the box, you'll also get some spare props and a set of prop guards. Lastly, you can get the Mavic Air in either a standard kit or in their Fly More combo. I have the Fly More combo here. It comes with 3 batteries, so 2 extras, a carry bag, an adapter that lets you use the batteries as a power bank to charge mobile devices or the remote controller, a multi-charging hub, and a few other things. If you think you might be looking at getting a spare battery or 2 anyways, which is something I would recommend, probably worth it to give the Fly More combo a look. So checking out the camera on the Mavic Air, it can record 4K video at 30 frames per second at up to 100 megabits per second. Now, that's obviously better than the Spark, which only records full HD, no 4K, and it's even a little bit better than the Mavic Pro, which records 4K 30 frames per second at up to 60 megabits per second. Now, that's not a huge difference. The untrained eye probably isn't going to notice that, but it is a non-negligible improvement in image quality in the Mavic Air over the Mavic Pro. In 1080p, you can shoot it up to 120 frames per second, so you can get some pretty decent slow-mo footage out of the Mavic Air. The Mavic Pro shoots it up to 96 frames per second in 1080p, so again, a slight improvement on the Mavic Air over the Pro. Lastly, looking at stills, the Mavic Air can shoot 12 megapixel photos, as well as horizontal and vertical panoramas, and in another new feature, it can now shoot spherical panoramas as well. So now let's talk about the intelligent flight modes and the overall flying experience. So controlling the Mavic Air with the included controller is very easy. It feels very fluid, like it does on all the other DJI drones. It does stand up pretty well to windy conditions like we've got today. It is a smaller drone, so you may be a little bit concerned about that, but it does a pretty good job at that. The gimbal also helps stabilize the footage there very well as well. If you are a bit more advanced, you can pop it into sports mode, which lets the drone fly at up to 68 kilometers per hour, so it's very fast, although that does disable some of the obstacle avoidance features, so be careful if you're doing that. It inherits all of the intelligent flight modes from the Mavic Pro and the Spark, so things like tap fly, where you can just tap where you want the drone to fly and it'll go there, tripod mode, which lets you fly the drone very slowly for some precision flying in tight spaces, active track, which is an excellent feature which lets you track, point at a subject and just say follow this and it will follow it around automatically. It's very, very good at that. I found the Spark was a little lackluster in its active track capability, but the Mavic Air is very, very strong there. It also gets the quick shot features that were new in the Spark. These are pre-programmed flight maneuvers that you can basically point the drone at a single subject. It's probably going to be yourself, and it'll do a pre-programmed flight maneuver. It comes with all the ones from the Spark, so that's Droney, which flies backwards up and away from the subject for kind of a reveal shot. Helix, which is similar, but it's kind of circling the subject while it does that for a bit more of a more dynamic reveal shot. It's got circle, which stays at a steady altitude and level and just circles you. And it has rocket, which will fly straight upwards while pointing the camera downwards. In addition to those, though, it also gains a couple new ones. Boomerang, which is like circle, but it's going to alternate between far away and close up, changing the distance between the subject as it spins around you. And a new one called Asteroid. This one's really cool. It's kind of like droney. It flies up and away, but then it combines it with one of those spherical panorama shots, making this cool, neat little shot, kind of a small world type image. You could also reverse it to go from the small world to the close-up shot as well. So some very cool features in there. They're super easy to use. You basically point it at the subject and click go, and it does it all automatically. So overall, a very good flying experience from the Mavic Air. It's easy and fluid to control. It's responsive. It does well in windier conditions. It has all of those higher end features from the Mavic Pro if you're a bit more advanced, as well as all of those more beginner-friendly features from the Spark if you're new to drones. So there's something there for everyone. Definitely a very good and responsive flying experience here with this drone. Speaking of features carried over from the Spark, there are two other ways that you can control the Mavic Air. The first one is with your phone rather than the remote controller. Now, in the Spark that made sense because it didn't ship with a remote controller, but since all versions of the Mavic Air come with one, using your phone is basically an undeniably worse way of controlling the Mavic Air. So I wouldn't recommend using that unless there's some specific situation where you don't have enough space to bring the remote controller with you. I don't think a lot of people are going to be flying it that way though. The other way is using gesture controls. Again, this is like the Spark. You can put your palm up there, it'll recognize that, and you can move your hand around to control its position. Still, with the remote controller, not a ton of uses for the gesture control, unless maybe you just want to use it to pop a quick selfie or something, but it is in there if you want. Lastly, let's talk about the new obstacle avoidance system on the Mavic Air. It's called APAS, or Advanced Pilot Assistance System. And on the Mavic Pro and on the Spark, what happened when it encountered an obstacle with its sensors on the bottom or on the front, it would stop the drone mid-flight so it wouldn't crash into the obstacle, which is great. But with APAS now on the Mavic Air, rather than just stopping the drone, it will actively fly around the obstacle or above it, so you can continue your flight without having the drone just stop in midair. The fact that we also have sensors on the rear of the Mavic Air now, which the Mavic Pro and the Spark don't have, means that you just got that extra security blanket and making sure that you're not going to be crashing the drone into anything. Again, especially if you're a beginner, it's nice to have that safety. Although be warned, it does not have sensors on the top, so you're still going to have to be careful flying it up. Now you've probably noticed that I've been mentioning quite a few areas where this new Mavic Air now outperforms the more expensive Mavic Pro. That's the addition of rear sensors, the new obstacle avoidance system, slightly higher image quality, new intelligent flight modes, gesture controls, smaller, more compact size, and so on. There are still a few areas where the Mavic Pro holds its ground though. The first one I already mentioned, that's the battery life. The Mavic Pro has a 27-minute battery life, while the Mavic Air is 21 minutes. The range is also greater on the Mavic Pro. It has a 7-kilometer range versus 4 kilometers on the Mavic Air. Also, the transmission system that controls between the remote controller and the drone on the Mavic Pro, that's a radio transmission system, and on the Mavic Air, it's a Wi-Fi transmission system. And I will say the radio transmission system on the Mavic Pro is more robust and reliable than on the Mavic Air. This didn't happen all the time, but I did notice some instances when I was well under the maximum range on the Mavic Air and the image would drop out or stutter a lot more. Definitely a little bit less reliable than the system, the OcuSync system that's on the Mavic Pro. Finally, the remote on the Mavic Pro does have that screen on it, which gives you a bunch of extra information. There's no screen on the remote for the Mavic Air. So if you are going to be flying for, you want to maximize your flight time, you want to get a lot of distance, and you just want the most reliability out of your drone, the Mavic Pro is probably the one that you'll want to consider. But for a lot of reasons, the Mavic Air, I think, is going to be the more popular drone going forward for most people. So overall, I think the Mavic Air is the most impressive drone on the market yet. It takes the best features from the Mavic Pro and the Spark and blends them together seamlessly, adding quite a few improvements, all at a lower price point than the Mavic Pro. And while DJI's Phantom lineup does have larger imaging sensors and therefore higher image quality than the Mavic lineup, the physical bulk of those drones means that they're kind of reserved for pro use only. If you're looking for a compact drone that has pro-level features, the Mavic Air is one of your best options. Now, these are out now. You can come by our Sydney CBD store, Bondi Junction, Miranda, Chatswood, the Brisbane or Melbourne CBD, or Cannington, Western Australia to come check them out. You can also order the Mavic Air on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Thanks guys, take care.